Welcome back to the program, everyone. The National Dailies gets our attention this morning, and Mr. Dayo Akintobi joins us live on the program, public affairs analyst and journalist. Thank you as always, TGIF, but we know that you're a TGIM.
Yes, indeed, but I've even got a good one for Friday now.
Okay.
I call it Oxygen Day.
What does that mean? Please?
No time, more oxygen to the brain. No, you guys have bigger brains. You guys have bigger brains. I mean, you're eggheads, you know so much that when you pull the tie, it doesn't disturb you. But for those of us who are just managing.
I don't believe that, Mr. Akintobi. Mr. Akintobi, you're forming Yoruba humility for us today.
Thank God it's Oxygen Day. Let's carry on.
It's another one.
Yes.
It's difficult to comprehend, but like Jeff was just saying a moment ago, imagine the president having to meet with executive governors just about providing CNG buses. I think we're 500 more for Nigerians. So because of CNG, that's why they had to call a meeting to perhaps sort of appeal to the governors to make this available to Nigerians. The timing is questionable. It looks like desperation to me. It looks like panic mood to me.
It goes to show just how low our democracy has fallen, and you know, even the people have come to have very low expectation of their leaders. Otherwise, the governors are the lords of the manor in their own ecosystem, and they don't really need to be told what to do in terms of bringing succor to their people. For the president to have to call them and sit down and say, look, let's put our heads together about how we can reduce transport costs for our people. First of all, it's coming a bit too late after 3.5 years with elections around the corner. These are things that should have been thought of and acted upon as soon as that subsidy is gone, statement was made. But nonetheless, I'm happy, see, because it means at least they're thinking about it. The opposition has lit a fire underneath them. And so this goes, for me, the key instructive element of what has happened is the fact that it shows us the advantage of a strong opposition. You are talking about now Atiku is playing a major role, and every day is coming up with something to put pressure on the government. So now we see the import of a strong opposition and what it can actually do in service of the people. So now that Atiku has found his voice, he's standing up to these people, they're suddenly finding that they have to react. Otherwise, they might pay a price at the polls. So, you know, of course, the ruling party has, I think, 31 state governors under its belt. So they're one large family. It's easy for the president to call them as his proteges and say, guys, come, let's collaborate. Because all of a sudden, we find ourselves scrambling at a very late hour to where the federal government is to act on its own, and each state individually tries to act on its own. It might not have a cumulative effect that is meaningful in the next 4 to 5 months. So he's rallied his troops, and you know, each time I hear them say, the president say, go and talk to the governors, go and talk to the governors, they all have more money there. And I just laugh.
Hold your governors to account.
You say, the governors are your boys. You know, as he showed yesterday by the meeting, by being able to call them all, to be able to push them to do this. But I don't think they needed to be pushed. I think they need to know their responsibilities to their own people, know that they have the wherewithal, they have the money, they have the legal authority, the constitutional backing, and the moral responsibility to take the lead in being creative about how to resolve this issue. Because remember, the issue of the hardship didn't come from the governors. It came from the federal administration. But the impact is felt at the street level, where the governors are the ones who hold sway. So, you know, I don't think the president needed to get to that point where the president had to call them and be telling them what to do. Right. They should have known better.
All right. Let's begin your analysis this morning by taking a look at the New Telegraph. The New Telegraph this morning, it leads with security Brogu attack. Catholic bishops demand action against terrorists and sponsors. Catholic bishops demand action against terrorist sponsors, says FG. States begin rescue operation for abducted Niger worshippers. PFN, that's the Pentecostal Fellowship of Nigeria, condemns attack, seeks quick, safe rescue. No contact made by abductors just yet. That's the Commissioner for Information, who was on this platform exclusively yesterday, and 163 freed Kwara abductees reunite with their families. But here we go again, insecurity taking the center stage for the new Telegraph this morning. The Catholic bishops, they have been very vocal, very critical, and I expect them to continue to stay on that path. Mr. Kintobi.
Yes, I don't know if this was calculated to embarrass the president, because in case we forget, he's actually the Jagaban of Borgu, that very place where this incident happened, and it just seems like it's rather deja vu-ish that would happen at a time like this in a place where he is one of the revered elder statesmen. But having said that, I look at that in conjunction with another report that was just released that talks about how many millions of dollars in ransom have been paid over the last couple of years in terms of this kidnapping scourge, and the fact that Boko Haram has received about 90% of it, which means that they are at the forefront of this terrorism scourge that we are facing in the country. Well, what has recently happened in Niger State is of course, a continuation of what we've been experiencing recently. Again, the president has pulled out all the stops and told all the security agencies to go out and rescue the abductees, but it's starting to sound like a broken song. We hear it over and over and over again. Like you said, the Catholic bishops are not relenting in their continuous push. Remember the recent controversy with the Cardinal Oneyeko in terms of what he had to say when the Catholic bishops visited the president, and they're speaking up again now that we have this situation with Niger State, that look, follow the money. The way to address terrorism properly is to seek the funding sources, because money is the oxygen that drives terrorism. Without having funding for logistics, for weaponry, for things like petrol, things like vehicles, motorcycles, it's not just about arms, but even when they kidnap people, their victims need to be fed while they're in captivity. So it takes quite a lot of money to fund their operations. Somebody is providing that money somewhere. And we now have BVNs, we have NINs, all the banks have this KYC, know your customer requirement. So we should follow the money. When this newspaper article is talking about the sponsors of terrorism, the people that we are capturing, they're just the street level operatives, the people we are arresting, they're just the bagmen that, run the operations for the real heavyweights who are behind the scenes. That is who we should target, and the way to follow them is by following the money.
Let's go to this Nigeria, and this leads with something that doesn't lead most of the time when it comes to the dailies, and that has to do with football. Chaos in football house. President directs comprehensive reforms over perennial dismal performances. NFF boss Guzo, others quit. They hardly quit, but now they have to go. I think elections are in September also, yes. Somewhere in down the road.
Yes, indeed. And football is a religion in Nigeria. So exactly. If we're not doing well in football, heads must roll, especially at a time like this where elections are imminent. And there have been two major disappointments. The Super Eagles, the Flying Eagles, didn't qualify for the World Cup.
Back to back.
And then the ladies, the Falcons too, didn't qualify for next year's World Cup. So heads had to roll, because all of a sudden you ask yourself that we are super talented. There's no league in the world, whether it's England's Premier League, whether it's La Liga, Bundesliga, any of the major leagues where Nigerian players are not the headliners, we're the major stars. And if we can thrive that well on the international scene, why is it that here we keep falling apart? It goes to the issue of administration and organization. You can recall all these horror stories of seeing Nigerian athletes or Nigerian players begging when they're already at the event, saying, we haven't received our allowances, our kits didn't arrive, our hotel bills haven't been paid, all kinds of chaos and dysfunction. So it goes down to the issue of administration, it goes down to how things are run. And it shows that they are not just inefficiencies, but perhaps beleaguered by corruption. And, even the previous NFF administration, I think Amaju Pinnick or somebody was one in charge of that, it also was rife with allegations of mismanagement, misappropriation, all kinds of things. So, maybe a complete purge is required. And here now, the leadership has had to resign. As you said, it's not a usual thing in Nigeria to see anybody resigning. But to tell you the truth, we've had one or two key positions occupied by key people that have had to resign recently, whether from political pressure or just the fact that, their positions were no longer sustainable. So we look forward to a complete rejigging of the administration of Nigerian football to where our local talents can thrive. We do have the talents and the ability to not just feature at the World Cup, but to even prevail and win those kind of tournaments based on the raw talents that we have. Do you mean
the female or the male team?
Both. We have the talent in both. Even in athletics, we have the talent. So it's about the administration, things like coaching, nutrition, health and fitness, all the things, the preparations we're supposed to do well ahead. We don't do them. When it's a month or a week to the tournament, we start calling all the players from all different places in the world. Come. People that have not practiced together, they've not played together, they've not bonded. Then at the last minute, we throw them together and expect them to be a cohesive unit. It doesn't work that way in organized sport. So we do need a complete revamp. Let's purge the entire structure and let's build the foundation from ground up again to where we can begin to feature at the world stage.
Interesting. That will form some talking points later on the program. So perhaps we should just, reserve the rest of the aces for later on. Let's go to, another subject matter with which we started off the program. Economic reforms. That's the front page of the Nigerian Tribune. The front page of the Nigerian Tribune. Economic reforms. Experts weigh gains, costs, prospects. Economy has stabilized. Finance Minister declares. Says focus now on conversion of stability to prosperity. Cautions against reform fatigue. Governors reject blame over accountability for fuel subsidy removal proceeds. I'm wondering if this is a half-empty or half-full situation, and the governor is refusing to take responsibility. What are your thoughts on this?
The governors have more money, they have more money, they have more money. That's the mantra, that's the song we've been hearing is, go to your governor, he's got more money, go to your governor. But the governors, on the other hand, are saying, we've got more money in Naira terms, but it's buying less. The same way that you were saying earlier that 30,000 Naira minimum wage before could buy more than 70,000 today. The governors are saying the same thing. They're saying, first of all, the value of that money is less. So in actual fact, even though it looks like it's more, it builds less roads, less bridges, less hospitals, less schools than we used to be able to with less money. Then secondly, they're also saying, hey, we've got increased labor costs. We used to pay 30,000, now we're paying 70,000. If you multiply by how many hundreds of thousands of workers, just wages and pensions alone under the new regime is sucking much of that money away. So we don't really have that much extra to do a whole lot. Well, like you said, it's a half full, half empty situation, because the same way that each and every one of us has had to adjust to the new reality of the value of what's in our pocket, and we've had to make do. Here we are at least living. Even if we're not thriving, we are living. We're doing the necessary things with the diminished buying power in our pockets. We're still surviving. And I mean, to the glory of God, we don't look hungry. We're not homeless. The average Nigerian is, in as much as the shoe is pinching, is still at least on a daily basis living till the next day. So the governors should be able to, with the diminished buying power of their allocation, should at least be able to do something that is beneficial to their people. Like Jeff said, there are one or two states that stand head and shoulders above the rest, but by and large, the majority of the states are not doing anything. They're just resting on their laurels saying, the buying power of the money is less. Well, I want to put it to you that if Nigerians can adjust as individuals and continue to live, even if they're not thriving, at least they're living from day to day, from hand to mouth. The governors, even with reduced buying power, should be able to take their states from day to day in which the people are able to breathe. Remember that cliche about your knees on my neck, let me breathe, let me breathe. The governors should take their knees off the people's neck and let them breathe on a daily basis. In terms of we want to move from stability to prosperity, as said by the Minister of Finance yesterday. That sounds very highfalutin and very encouraging and fluffy, and that okay. It goes back, the hint or what is implied in that statement is that, look, when we came in, the economy was in a shambles, the country was going bankrupt, the country was about to fail. And I have always disputed that assertion. First of all, that it's the same party. And so you cannot exempt yourself from what the previous administration did, because the party reigns supreme. So it's the same party that has moved from one to the next. And in addition to that, I also think that 3.5 years is too long to still be talking about prosperity, about moving to prosperity. Statistics is all we've been seeing for 3.5 years. By now, we should have been able to begin to see the gains. It's not 3.5 years later that you should be talking about CNG buses to reduce transport costs. If you reduce transport costs, cost of food in the market will reduce. It shouldn't be with 6 months to an election, because it looks like this is vote buying in a different roundabout kind of way. I mean, all of a sudden now we are seeing $1 billion cash transfer program with a few months to go to the election. Is that vote buying in a roundabout kind of way? Why don't we see substantive gains to these reforms, to where we're moving from reforms to prosperity much faster?
Yeah. Well, desperate times, they say, demand desperate measures. Dayo Akintobi, public affairs analyst and journalist, thank you as always for your analysis on the program.
My pleasure always.
But this is the morning brief. Stop gas flaring and convert the resources into economic benefits for Nigerians. That was the message of Mr. President to the management of the liquefied natural gas. We'll talk about all of this after this moment. Please stay with us.